Test. Test. We'd like to welcome everyone to the July 19th, 2023 business session of the Planning Commission for Cottonwood Heights City. First of all, does anyone have among our commissioners have any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest disclosed? We'd like to acknowledge that one of our commissioners, Commissioner Ebler, is joining us remotely. So welcome, Commissioner Ebler.
Thank you.
So our first item of business is a general comments period. The purpose of this, if you are new to visiting us, first of all, we are so glad to have public engagement and glad to have so many people represented here tonight. This first section is a chance for you to share whatever you'd like at the microphone. You get 3 minutes. The one caveat to that is that if you're here to address the business item that we're going to talk about relative to 6851 South Big Cottonwood Canyon Road, it would not be appropriate to comment on that item at this time. We will get to the point that there will be public comments on that item, but right now, and if you comment at one time, it does not preclude you from being involved later on. But in this first time period, this is your chance to comment on anything in general that you'd like the Planning Commission to be aware of. So do we have anyone that wants to make general public comment? Please come to the microphone, and if you can share your name.
Thank you. My name's Ed Promozic. My wife and I live in Canyon Creek Circle, right by the old mill. And my general comment is it's a little bit late, but I wanted to thank all of you for the efforts you put forth this spring in not having a flood. I know that was a tremendous amount of work and effort on everyone's part. We have it in our backyard and we were scared to death. And we're very appreciative of everyone's efforts with the sandbagging and constant monitoring on it. So thank you very much. Most everything else I have is for later. One item I would like to talk about is Big Cottonwood Canyon Road. We feel very strongly that if we could turn it into a historic roadway, it would benefit all of us much later. Everywhere you look, there's very little of that left. Maybe Danish Road, and it's still got that rural feel. It's not been widened. We'd very much appreciate it if you consider leaving it like that. That's all I'll say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And we don't get any credit at all for the sandbags, but thank you for that on behalf of the city, I guess. Any others for general public comment?
I would like to reiterate, I'm Jackie Hibbard. I represent the Old Mill Estates HOA. We feel the same way about the Big Cottonwood Canyon Road being designated a historic road, just because it would tie in so well with the trail system, which is so nice with the little placards and all that. And I remember going there as a kid and driving up that, trying to take a little shortcut up to the canyons, just because it was so pretty. And that's why we bought in there. And I just hope that everyone's thoughtful in their decisions and their planning, that we keep that or make that into a historic road, because it's just so pretty. And it would be so sad to widen it and make it kind of crazy like it could be. But thank you.
Thank you. Any others for general public comment? Okay, we will officially close general public comment, and we will now move to the business items that we have. We have just one business item tonight, project ZMA-23-001, a public hearing and possible recommendation on general plan amendment and zoning map amendment to modify the land use designation of 6851 South Big Cottonwood Canyon Road from mixed use to low density residential, and the zoning designation from Foothill Residential F1-21 to residential single family R-1-8. So what's in order at this time is a presentation from staff.
Thank you. And for the benefit of some additional attendees today, I'll go through the presentation in full again. This is an application for both a land use map and a zoning map amendment at 6851 Big Cottonwood Canyon Road. I'll explain what that means in just a second, but I also want to clarify, if you look up this address today, what you'll see is that address corresponds with a parcel that's almost 16 acres in size. The actual request, however, is being run concurrently with a lot line adjustment, a boundary line adjustment. So the rezone request only applies to approximately 3 acres of that 16-acre parcel. And it's the 3 acres that kind of surround the constructed cul-de-sac access through the Canyon Creek Estates subdivision. The boundary of that 3-acre parcel is approximately the alignment of Big Cottonwood Creek. So the request only pertains to that 3-acre portion, not the entire 16-acre parcel. 2 things are being requested. One is a land use map amendment. That is a designation, a policy recommendation out of the city's general plan, which is a policy document, not a regulatory zoning type document. But what it does is it helps guide the city when making future land use decisions. Every parcel in the city is given a land use designation, which is essentially what we want to see there in the future, broadly speaking. Obviously, it doesn't get down to this exact context when we look at the entire city, and the general plan applies to the entire city. So the land use designation is a policy designation, a future looking land use of where we would want the city to go with land use in the future. The zoning on a property are the laws and restrictions and use requirements as they apply today. So the zoning is what has the teeth, the regulatory teeth on a property. It dictates how you can use your property, how close you can build the property lines, and other basic development standards. When considering changes, we want to make sure that a new zone corresponds with the general plan. We want those 2 things to be as compatible as possible. So when a zoning request comes in to change zoning on a parcel, we look first at the general plan. If the general plan matches what the requested zoning is, then oftentimes the city will be supportive of that zoning change because it matches that future land use vision. There are circumstances though, such as this one, where when we see a zoning change and we look at the land use designation on a property, maybe it doesn't make as much sense to stick with that land use designation. So then we can see applications for land use map amendments as well. The future land use designation currently on this whole parcel, including the subject 3 acres here, is mixed use, which allows for a wide range of residential and commercial developments. So as it exists today, the future vision is a mixed use, a commercial, residential mix on this entire parcel. The current zoning today is foothill residential, which is a single family zone, typically reserved for more foothill areas up in the kind of the foothills of the city and in sloped areas with a lot of vegetation, but that is the zoning as it exists today. The applicant is interested in changing the zoning from foothill residential with a half-acre lot size requirement to residential single family. R18 is what we call that. What that means is uses allowed in the R18 zone predominantly are residential single family detached homes that have to be on lot sizes that are at least 8,000 square feet in size. There are some other allowances and standards, but that is predominantly what's allowed in that zone. And that is what the entire residential area around this property is zoned today. In order for that future land use map to be compatible with the zoning requested, the applicant has also requested a change to the land use designation from mixed use to residential low density, so that, if approved, when we look at that future land use, it will be compatible with the surrounding context and the zoning on the property. The property owner is Walker Development Partnership, LLC. The applicant that has submitted this application on the owner's behalf is Gilson Engineering. This photo just gives some additional context to that area as it exists today. It's a cul-de-sac with full sidewalk already built around it. That cul-de-sac was built, I believe, prior to city incorporation in the 90s. This just is a graphic representation of what I just explained. You can see the surrounding developed residential areas here are all carry that future land use designation of residential low density. The brown on the map is mixed use. So the resulting change in that map would just kind of cut off the little wing of that 16-acre parcel and repurpose that as residential low density instead of mixed use. Current zoning, you can see there, the green is the zoning as it is today, foothill residential. If the proposed zone change goes through and is approved, again, that same little area would be changed to an R18 designation. I do want to point out, although some of the lot sizes in the Canyon Creek Estates do exceed 8,000 square feet, they all have that same R18 designation today. Same as the Old Mill Estates and the other developed residential areas around this. As I mentioned before, being run concurrently to the rezone requests and the land use map amendment request is a lot line adjustment. The 3-acre parcel that we're showing as proposed does not exist today. So one of staff's recommendations is, if approved, that lot line adjustment be completed, finalized, and recorded prior to applying that zone change. We do want to make sure that the entire parcel is not rezoned. That's not the intent. So we need to see that lot line adjustment be approved first. This is the original Canyon Creek Estates subdivision plat that was recorded and approved back in 1993. The subject parcel that we're talking about is this kind of blank area to the top left of this. It's actually listed, even in 1993, is listed as future phase 2. So the Canyon Creek Estates subdivision was platted and developed. The plat subdivision title itself is called phase 1. And then this area was listed as phase 2. So this tells us that it was always the intention to develop this as a 2-phase subdivision. And that is also reflected in the fact that the cul-de-sac is already constructed and existing. The Planning Commission's role in this legislative land use application is to hear public comments, discuss the merits and impacts of the proposal, and make a recommendation to the city council. Where this does involve a zone change, changing the use requirements and laws as they apply on the property today, that's considered a legislative matter. So the city council would be the final authority. So what would happen is the commission, at whatever point in time is ready to make a recommendation, would make a recommendation to the city council. This would then be discussed and considered again at the city council, who would then take a final vote on the matter before anything is finalized. Recommendations and findings. Based kind of on this analysis, staff is recommending approval, subject to completion of the proposed lot line adjustment prior to the new zoning and land use taking effect. Some of the key findings, and there are additional listed in the staff report. are that the proposed land use and zoning is more compatible with the immediately surrounding development patterns and access. That's key because if this property were rezoned to mixed use and a commercial use were approved today, that would be accessed through that same Canyon Creek Estates cul-de-sac road. And it doesn't seem appropriate to access a commercial development through a residential development that ends on a cul-de-sac. And then Big Cottonwood Creek provides a natural buffer or transition to future adjacent development areas. This just geographically, this 3-acre portion sits kind of separate and separated from that creek from the rest of that 16-acre parcel. So any future land use or development plans that could be considered in the future won't really be too drastically affected by approval of this land use and zoning map change. I've got model motions when you're ready, but I'll open it up to the commission for questions.
You had made the statement about the access through the community if this was mixed use. Is that the only way and the only pattern that would be worked out, or could you access it on the Canyon Road as well if this was mixed use?
You could remove the cul-de-sac. However, removal of the cul-de-sac, we'd still have to construct a turnaround. That's a public road. So public roads do need cul-de-sacs. They can't have hammerheads or anything else. So while you could cut in a new driveway access, that would require some grading to take place and modification at least of the cul-de-sac, but you can remove the cul-de-sac outright today.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? All right. We have both the property owner and the applicant here, and we'd love to give you the opportunity, either one or maybe both of you, to share anything that you'd like to share with the Planning Commission.
Thanks. I'm Brandon Priest from Gilson Engineering. I guess the biggest thing that we want to bring before the Planning Commission is to echo the staff recommendation is this second phase of this plat was always meant to be a second phase of a plat. In '93, when the plat was recorded, it was labeled as such. When this part of the county was annexed into Cottonwood Heights, it was never developed. We actually have an old plat with all the signatures on it that we let expire, and the developer was never finalized. So in holding what was already done in the past, all the utilities are in, the sidewalks in, the curb and gutters in, the sewers in, the water's in. There are some power poles, which I know as you go down and see, there's power poles, there's some sectionalized, there's some things, some power challenges that will have to be redone. That was one of the reasons that the property was never developed back in '93, is working with Rocky Mountain Power. They wanted substantial improvement costs to actually do more than just the subdivision, but actually improve a whole bigger piece of the area. Those costs are a lot lower today, and Rocky Mountain Power is more than happy to comply with whatever we need to do, and that will be brought forth in the subdivision part of this if the zone change in general plan is permitted. And so we are here for the Planning Commission to ask for approval of this general plan change and also the zone change, and happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Questions for the applicant? Commissioner Ebler, do you have anything that you want to ask?
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm generally not in love with down zoning, but I think for this specific parcel and the proximity to established single family community and the natural buffer, the Cottonwood Creek, I understand the arguments for this.
Okay, anything from the property owner?
I'm Doug Shelby. I'm a member of the Walker Development Partnership. They're probably curious why we haven't done anything with this, and Brandon kind of mentioned that. We put all the improvements in, and then Rocky Mountain Power, I think it was Utah Power back then, but we put another $45,000 into a transformer that's over by the hog wallow. And then they wanted us to essentially rebuild their whole line system from here to Glen Canyon. So it wasn't economical at that point to develop and so, but now we have a reasonable amount to move those overhead lines and they service the eastern portion at least temporarily, and they're all overhead and we want to get rid of them because they're kind of an eyesore in a way. And they're also a fire hazard. So Rocky Mountain Power's been interested in getting a lot of that stuff underground. And so that's kind of the basics why it's drug on for so long that we haven't pursued it, but they're going to run the power a different route up to the AJ Rock parcel now. So that took the pressure off us. So I don't know if you have any other questions, but that's kind of the basics.
Any questions?
My neighbors might be sad here because they might lose their parking spot for their snowmobile trailers and boats, but
You've been kind to those who have used your space. Any questions for the property owner?
Chairman Mills, I had a quick question based upon that commentary. Would the developer and property owner be amenable to a condition from the planning commission about burying the power lines as part of the downzoning?
to bury it.
Yeah,
A portion of it is, it's already buried to the bridge. And then we're gonna run it on the, essentially the northeast side of the river over. And then at some point it'll all be buried, but that portion will be buried. I'm not sure about the portion that feeds the hog wallow though. That comes across the street and then goes back across the street to the hog wallow. So I don't know what Rocky Mountain will do about that.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you both. Appreciate that. With that, we'd like to open the public hearing portion. I have a stack of speaker comment cards. So if you haven't filled out one of these, we would still love to hear from you. It's not too late. So but we would appreciate you filling out a comment card, and you may change your mind if you're not filling out, if you're not speaking right now. We understand some of you will potentially be responding as you hear the comments of others. So we will keep it open for the time being here. The first comment card I have is from Jackie Hibbard. And again, we would limit you to 3 minutes per person unless you're speaking on behalf of an HOA, in which case we authorize 5 minutes. So we'll start with Jackie Hibbard.
I don't really have much to say, but yay. We've been waiting for a long, long time to see that property developed, and it'll really increase the whole community. So thank you, actually. And that's all I really have to say is I just hope it goes through because it'll really enhance the neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Anthony Evans.
I think, yes, I'd like to see it go through. I've been there since 1995 and Doug, we see him all the time dealing with, trespassers, people parking. So it'd be nice to finish that development and have it part of the community. So.
Thank you. AJ Etzel.
I live in the Old Mill subdivision, and like my neighbors, we've been waiting for this to happen since 1993 when we heard it was going in. It's kind of a no-brainer because the cul-de-sac's been in, and we've just had kind of an empty field kind of mess there. And I think it would be great to improve the aesthetics of the area to get this finished. So please approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ed.
Thanks once again. Doug, I was gonna vote for it till you told me I was gonna lose my trailer parking, so we're gonna have to work something out. We're very grateful that they're gonna hopefully go through with this. We've been looking at it for a long time too. And he's been a real good neighbor, so I'm sure they'll do a quality project. On the setbacks from the stream with the potential building, does the riparian setback have any effect on that? Or does anybody have, Mike, do you have an opinion of?
This is actually not a time that you can ask questions, but.
Oh, okay.
That's, when we deliberate as commissioners, it's that
Great.
your question's noted.
Thanks for the time.
That's all the comment cards I have. Are there others that wish to add a? Rick, please.
Thanks, Dan. Commissioners, Rick Stevenson, we live in the neighborhood where Mr. Shelby's proposing a change. We're obviously delighted. When we bought our property there, we were told that those 10 lots would be developed. And we proceeded with the purchase based on that. So we're in favor of lower density, obviously, for the ingress and egress, the neighborhood. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we will go ahead and close the public hearing portion. And now it's our opportunity to deliberate as a planning commission. So commissioners, what are your thoughts?
I haven't heard much contrary to this. I'm wondering what the argument would be against doing this, if there are any arguments that way.
Chairman Mills, I thought one of the speakers brought up a good point. Could we get clarification from Mike or the city about, I don't think sleds is applicable as of yet, but just in terms of any right of way or setback provisions now that would apply to this property?
And just as a matter of status, we do have a sensitive lands ordinance, but it is under review.
Right.
Planning Commission, we are aware, but for the public, that has been approved by the Planning Commission and is under review by the City Council, but it's not been approved thus far. But can you contrast what the standard would be today as of what it would be after that sleds ordinance?
Sure, yeah, so any sensitive elements of the site will be screened through whatever ordinance is in place at the time the subdivision application is made. We don't know when that's going to be, but whatever ordinance is on the books, that will be the reviewing ordinance. I brought up the old, you can't really see it very well, the old Canyon Creek Estates plat. You can see here, even in 1993, this dotted dashed line area is a creek buffer. Salt Lake County Flood Control is going to have review authority on the final subdivision plat. They typically have a creek setback standard that they will impose and that we require to be reflected on the plat. So it will apply. Typically it's 20 feet. I don't want to speak for their standards specifically. What's proposed in the amended sleds ordinance for single family residential would also be a 20-foot no build area from the top of the bank. So that's consistent with what we would expect Salt Lake County Flood Control to already impose.
I just wanted to add, if I might, Chair, Mike, can you pull up the exhibit that shows the smaller project area through the lot line adjustment? So if you guys will recall from the riparian, the proposed riparian standards in the current draft, it works off of a certain distance from the top bank of that creek. Incidentally, the kind of like limits of disturbance for this chunk we're looking at is the creek. So if you were to put lots along there, you would have a rear setback from the rear lot line. Functionally, that is also the creek because of where they're doing that lot line adjustment. So it kind of, even if sleds weren't to be updated and the riparian standards weren't to be adopted prior to application submittal, functionally you have the same thing happening where you have a rear setback on those lots, just like you would have a setback from the creek because of where that property line hits the creek. So I think between that and the flood control component, there are some other measures already in place that achieve a buffer regardless of whether that sled's update is codified.
Thank you. Does that answer the question? Commissioner Ebler, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I was curious about the what impact the update mostly would have. Appreciate it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, to address the question Commissioner Ebler asked regarding burying utilities, subdivision code has a requirement to bury utilities as is feasible. So that is all covered as part of that subdivision review. When they come in to develop lots, there's a standard in that code that says utility lines have to be buried.
Yeah, and I just brought up the picture anyways, and I see where it crosses the road, and it looks like it crosses over and hits a pole into a yard across the street. It probably runs right along the creek. I appreciate it.
Other thoughts or clarifications?
After this flood season that we have survived, I think it's good to have a setback. I also have property bordering on the creek, and I'm thankful that I still have property. Good idea.
I know Old Mill Estates has been watching carefully all June and July.
Could you pull up the model motion by chance?
Just a reminder, this is one item, but we'll take two motions, one on land use, one on zoning.
I move to recommend approval of the city council for the general plan land use map amendment portion of project ZMA 23-001 based on the findings listed in the staff report dated July 19th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. What's in order now is further discussion on the motion. Additional discussion. Okay, without additional discussion, I'll close discussion on the motion. You ready for the vote? Okay. Commissioner Chapel,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinman,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Mills, yes. Okay, I believe there's a second model motion.
I move to recommend approval to the city council for the zoning map amendment portion of project ZMA 23-001 based on the findings listed in the staff report dated July 19th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion on this motion? You ready for the vote? Commissioner Chapel,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinman,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebler,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills, yes. Motion passes. And I might note that just as a matter of personal privilege, Mr. Shelby, we appreciate the fact that historically the Walker family at one time were the caretakers of almost the entire mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon, and appreciate the legacy that that family has provided to this community and this city, and recognizes another fantastic contribution. So please pass on to the stakeholders that appreciation from the city and the planning commission specifically, another fantastic project and contribution to our. I believe we have a couple of items related to the previous minutes that we need to approve.
Yes.
Yeah, we've just got the June 7th ones on there.
Okay.
So they're in your packet. You've had a chance to look through them. We'll do the first July meeting ones at our next meeting, just June for today.
I move to approve the
If you had a chance to review those minutes, are there any edits that we need to make?
I move to approve the planning commission minutes from June 7th, 2023.
I'd like to second that motion.
We have a motion, a second. What's in order is further discussion. Any edits at all? Hearing none, I think you're ready for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes is
Aye.
presented in the packet, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. One more motion to make tonight.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you to the public
Thanks,
and
everyone.
the staff. Thank you for your participation.